My name is Hannah Lohman, and I'm a now grad student in environmental engineering, but for my undergrad I studied civil engineering with a focus in environmental engineering and environmental hydrology and hydraulic engineering. Well, I guess looking back in high school, I was really interested in math and science, but I came from a really small town, so I didn't really know much about engineering. And so a couple of my teachers told me to consider engineering for my undergrad. So then I just looked up different engineering online, and I settled on civil engineering because I felt like it was a way that I could work on projects that actually helped people, and I could see where these projects would make a difference in the lives of others. And I chose Illinois because it's one of the best places for civil engineering, and it's also a really large school, so there's a lot of opportunities to interact with other people, both inside my major and outside my major, which is especially important for projects like this. Outside of class, I did a lot of volunteer work, and I did a lot of volunteering just with people like in food kitchens and underdeveloped areas. And so I picked environmental engineering because I felt like it was a way that I could combine the idea of helping other people and my love for volunteering. And so water was a big part. We have a lot of water classes for environmental engineering here, and I think it's a big part for a lot of the faculty. And so I picked environmental engineering with water-based because it's a huge problem that we're going to be facing now and in the future, and there's a lot of people that don't have access to water. Everyone who focuses on environmental engineering, it's actually required to take this class, which I think is pretty cool because I think a lot of people might have that interest in international development, but they don't have a way to pursue it. So yeah, I was required and I had to take the class. But not everyone gets a chance to travel, so you have to go through an application period and an interview process. And so I interviewed over winter break, and then they let us know if you're going to be able to travel on the trip. And I wanted to travel because I think that brings a lot more to the table for doing design work, because you actually experience the culture and you can ask questions about what they actually need, which would make the projects more meaningful for the communities you're helping. The course goal is to develop sustainable technology involving sanitation, energy, and water. And it was the first time we had ever traveled to Rwanda, because past trips have gone to Kenya and Uganda. So this trip was really big because we were kind of going without knowing what we were getting into. And so the class is divided into people that got to travel and people that were staying at home and doing research for the project. And so the people at home were researching various technologies that we could implement for these designs, but we didn't really know what we needed. So the main objective of this trip was going and collecting information and figuring out 3 distinct projects that we could focus on for our designs. And so my project focused on a lake region in Rwanda, and then the other projects focused on a school and an existing water treatment plant. Some days we would interview community members, other days we would collect water samples and run lab tests to figure out what was actually in the water. So we were looking at a surface water lake source. So when you're dealing with a surface water source, there's a lot of problems that can happen with just large debris and then just runoff from the mountains and the surrounding areas. So our design looked at coming up with some sort of inlet structure to collect the water, and then it moved into basic chambers that helped settle out that large debris with chemical reactions, and then it would go into more filters that would take out the small organics and eventually the pathogens and viruses. And then once it went through that, we wanted to ensure that there weren't those very dangerous pathogens and viruses that would cause illnesses. So we went into a disinfection process that would further kill those bad pathogens in the water. And then we also looked at a solar pump that could bring the water from the system to the community members in surrounding hills. And then we also designed some tanks to store the water. So our design was specific for that area, but we also were taking into account how that design could be implemented in a potential pilot plant for Uganda, because we do have a lot of existing relationships there. So based on the actual needs of the water, you could include some of these technologies proposed in the line or exclude them depending on what were the needs. But I could definitely see these being implemented in other areas too. I played a unique role on campus because I had the opportunity to be a team leader also. So that was a really rewarding experience because I learned how to manage 15 people on a team and figure out how we could come up with these technologies and bring it together to be a final report in the end. So I was able to do a lot of design work, but also improve my management skills and communication skills too. So I think for my academic and professional career, I want to focus on just the large-scale international development. Wherever that may take me, it could be in water, it could be in energy, but I think looking at how to improve the quality of life of people in developing countries and in the United States, I think would give me satisfaction every day going into work, if I could somehow find a way to improve the lives of others. So at the beginning of the class, we had a lot of lectures about various technologies that you could implement for these systems. So that was really great because we got to learn firsthand what types of technologies were even out there. And then after we learned about that, everyone was divided into their own specific technology that they researched. And so everyone had their own focus and they were an expert in one area. And then once we figured out what was actually in the water, we discussed as a team what we thought were the primary contaminants that we wanted to remove, and then people would speak up whether or not their technologies would work for it. And so we had a really long conversation about which technologies we thought were best, because the technologies that we think might be best might not necessarily be suitable for those areas. So there were a lot of conversations, but once we settled on the technologies we wanted to look at, then we went to a design phase where we actually created dimensions and looked at what type of concentrations you needed for chemicals to make the water actually clean at the end. I think it's very interdisciplinary since you're dealing with that behavioral change. I think it's really important to have the technical expertise of engineers, but also people that are experienced in the social side and the economic side. Because you are implementing new technologies in an area, so you need to kind of understand every part of approaching these types of problems. I think that's a really difficult topic because I mean, not even here, we don't really reuse our water. So it's hard to go to developing communities and ask them to reuse their water if we won't even do it. But I think, especially in the future, it's something that we do need to consider with the water scarcity and climate change that's occurring. So I think just coming up with a way to make people more willing to reuse their water would solve a lot of problems. I think the nice part about working in developing countries is that they don't have the infrastructure established already, so we can go in and bring in new ideas based on the challenges and mistakes that we made in the United States and other developed nations throughout the world. So I know one way to improve this is just looking at the centralized versus decentralized systems. So in the United States, we have one location where we have the treatment. And so you bring all the water to that one location. But that can be really expensive for pumping, and it just doesn't make sense to bring water to one spot. So for our designs, we were focusing on looking at how we could do point of use or decentralized systems and focus on cleaning the water at the site instead of wasting energy and to bring the water to one location. So that could be an area that could be looked at and improved. So I wasn't sure what it would be like going to Rwanda because I'd never been to Africa before. So I was expecting, I don't know, I don't even know what I was expecting. But when I got there, the infrastructure was a lot nicer than I was expecting. And the people there were really nice. And so I think just socially, I took away a lot. Well, I wanted to do international development, so I think it showed a different side of international development and how in a lot of areas in the world it's needed. So I think it kind of instilled a sense of, yes, this is exactly what I want to be doing in the future. I guess coming back, I always do feel a little sad for what people take for granted here when there's people in the world that are struggling to even find clean water, where we can just turn on a faucet and it's there, and we don't have to worry about potentially getting sick the next day or whether or not we're healthy enough to even go get more water. So I think water is one of the most important problems to solve in today's society, just because it's one of the most important things to look at when you're looking at improving the quality of life for people. And with that improvement in the quality of life, people are able to live longer and they're able to contribute to the global society. And I think an emphasis on Sub-Saharan Africa is important because there is a large number of people there that don't have this access to improved water and sanitation. And so we wanted to come in and to help these people, but not to give them all these ideas that we want. We wanted to go in and look at what they actually need and how to involve the communities in these decisions instead of us going in and telling them what they need to be doing. Water in Sub-Saharan Africa is more community-based than what it is here because a lot of women and children are actually going and collecting water. So it's a huge part of their everyday life. So you have to take that into account when you're bringing technologies because it's a way they can socialize, it's a way that they're used to collecting water. So community ownership is especially important because you are introducing a behavioral change. Bringing in these technologies isn't just going to change their water quality, it's going to change the number of hours they're putting into collecting water. And the taste of the water is important, and every aspect of the water could be a problem that needs to be addressed that you wouldn't even think about here. I think it's very important for women to play leadership roles in these projects, both for students and in the community, because women do play a primary role in raising the family and collecting water. So I think giving these opportunities to women gives them more of an ownership of the system, and also just shows that women can do a lot of things, and it's not only men. So I think it's really great that the University of Illinois provides opportunities like this for women, just because I think engineering has in the past been a male-dominated field. And I think that a new perspective can help improve the engineering field, and I think women working on water projects in areas where women are collecting the water, I think would create a nice pair to create technologies that actually are meaningful for the communities. I think we do a really great job doing the thorough research that needs to be done, but I think the next steps would be looking at the health impacts for introducing these technologies into these societies, and also looking at the economic impacts and business models, and looking at how these people actually be able to use them in their daily lives, but also earn an income off of it, and just introduce economic development and societal development in more ways than just improving water. So I think the best part about graduating from Illinois with a degree in engineering is the fact that I could go out and do anything, because they provided us an education that taught us how to be engineers, but also taught us how to write. They taught us how to communicate and talk to other people. And they also provided opportunities to work with other disciplines. And I think that's pretty unique to Illinois. And I think that collaboration and working with other people is one of the most important things to take away from this education.